Hello, welcome to the Dedicated Physionic podcast. My name is Nicholas Verhoeven. I'm student, molecular medicine, you know the deal, doctorate student, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so today I wanted to talk about something that a article, that's the word I'm looking for, that was extremely interesting because they looked at twins, but the setting that they put these twins in was completely different. So one twin was sent to space, and the other twin remained on Earth. And then they wanted to check just a few different parameters to see if there were any changes that happen inside the body when a person goes to space. And we know some of the basic stuff, obviously. If you go to space, you're going to lose muscle mass, you're going to lose bone density, things of that nature. But they were especially interested in genes. How does space affect our genes? So they looked at, they also wanted to check if vaccines work. So that's probably the least interesting to me. They checked if vaccines work. They do. Okay, I'll get that out of the way. But the more interesting stuff that they looked at was telomere length. So at the end of your chromosomes, you have what are called telomeres, and they are strongly associated, and sometimes, well, a lot of researchers, especially over the last like 15 or so years, maybe 20 years, have associated telomere length with your health, but more so your age. So if you are aging well, then you tend to have longer telomeres. So the DNA repair process is moving along more efficiently, or is going better if you have longer telomeres. So longer telomeres is a better healthy state. And so they wanted to check that, and then they also wanted to check the epigenetic changes, or kind of the expressions of particular genes, or a series of different genes. And what they found is that this twin that went up into space, that person stayed up there for 340 days, so nearly a year. And during that time, the other twin, of course, stayed on Earth. So they had their control through that twin. And interestingly enough, they found that the telomeres of the twin that went into space stayed longer than the one on Earth when compared. So somehow, something about space, well, presumably, assuming that all the other variables are the same, which, let's be real, they probably weren't, but let's stretch our imagination for a little bit. Something about space, or maybe what that person was doing in space, led to his telomeres not shortening to the same level as his identical twin. So that's pretty remarkable. That's kind of cool. It's like sci-fi world kind of stuff to think that the health of your cells may be enhanced in space somehow. Ooh, kind of creepy. But that's not the end of the story. What they also found is that when that person returned back to Earth, his telomeres shortened more rapidly than his identical twin that had been here this whole time. So then it equalized. So it went back to what it should have been after those 340 days. So in space, doing great. Once he returns back, not so hot, doing worse. So really interesting, that huge shift, that kind of black and white shift between one environment and another environment. I thought that was really, really cool. I have no clue as to why. If you have some speculations, I would love to geek out with you. So feel free to let me know your thoughts. Now, the other thing that they looked at was gene expression. So they found that genes were differentially expressed. I think that makes some intuitive sense, that if you're in a completely different environment, of course, you're going to have genes that are going to be expressed differently than if they are on Earth. So your body's trying to handle that by expressing certain genes and not expressing other genes. So they were expressed differently in space than they were on Earth. However, once he returned back to Earth after 6 months, the genes reverted back to their old expression, so their expression that they were before. However, except for a series of genes that was responsible for DNA repair. So those genes were differently expressed even after 6 months. So they never actually returned back to normal, or at least up to the point that they measured, which was many, many months, years afterwards. So somehow there's something about the DNA repair mechanism, which, keep that in mind, that is also highly, highly related to the telomere length that is not turned off. So something about that stays on or stays changed relative to a person who stays on Earth. And then, of course, now from this twin study, they're going to try and look at further genes, like especially looking at those particular sets of genes to see if with other astronauts, if you see that exact same response in their gene code, in their expression of their genes. So some really cool stuff, kind of sci-fi futuristic things to think about. Does space have an impact on our aging? A lot of people relate strongly that telomeres are related to aging, and maybe, well, there's a prevailing theory for a long time. I don't think it's quite as strong as it once was, that telomeres are the reason why we age. So there was a lot of evidence. So it's really incredible and exciting to think that, potentially space could have some sort of solution. Now, granted, again, it could be an extraneous variable that we're not considering, a confounding variable, I should say, that we're not considering. But anyways, I thought I'd share that with you. Hopefully you found it as interesting as I did. And I hope that I have the pleasure of speaking with you guys in the next one. Have a good one, guys. See ya.